The massive salvage ship, Fortune Seeker, drifted silently through the debris field at the edge of the threshold system. Its worn hull reflected the dim light of the distant sun, while its powerful scanners swept through the ancient battlefield searching for valuable materials. Commander Tull stood on the bridge, his 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display. He had led his crew through countless salvage operations, but something about this sector made his scales tingle. The debris field wasn't natural. It spoke of an ancient battle, one fought with weapons far more powerful than anything used in modern warfare. "Commander, we're picking up something big," reported his sensor officer. "Really big. About 3 kilometers in length." Tull's interest peaked. "Show me." The holographic display shifted, revealing a massive silhouette floating in the darkness. As the Fortune Seeker's lights illuminated the object, Tull's breath caught in his throat. It was a warship, but unlike anything he had ever seen. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Despite its apparent age, there were no signs of major damage or decay. "That's impossible," muttered his chief engineer. "Look at those readings. The hull is made of materials we can't even identify." Tull moved closer to the display, studying the strange symbols etched into the ship's hull. They were familiar, yet ancient. The language of the legendary humans who had vanished from the galaxy centuries ago. "The Eternal Vigil," he translated slowly, remembering his studies of ancient languages. "It's a human dreadnought." The bridge crew fell silent. Everyone knew the stories of human warships, how they had once dominated the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. Some said they had been destroyed in a great war. Others believed they had fled to unknown space. But their technology had been legendary. "Sir, should we call this in?" asked his second-in-command nervously. Tull smiled, showing his pointed teeth. "And share the profit?" "No. This is our find. Scan for active power signatures." The scans came back negative. The mighty warship appeared to be completely dead, its systems dormant or destroyed by time. Multiple warning markers in different languages covered various access points, but they had long since lost their glow. "Look at these weapon mounts," said Tull, pointing at the massive turrets. "The materials alone are worth a fortune, and if we can access their data cores..." He didn't need to finish the thought. Even fragments of human technology could make them all wealthy beyond imagination. The Fortune Seeker moved closer, extending its docking tubes to attach to the ancient vessel. Tull led the first boarding party himself, stepping through the airlock into the dark corridors of the human ship. Their lights revealed corridors tall enough for beings twice their size, with strange markings and dead control panels lining the walls. "It's like a tomb," whispered one of his crew. "A tomb of giants." "Giants who are long dead," Tull replied confidently. "Their time is past. This is just another wreck to be harvested." They made their way deeper into the ship, marking valuable materials and components for later retrieval. The air was stale but breathable, preserved by systems they didn't understand. Everything was larger than necessary, built on a scale that seemed designed to intimidate. "Sir," called one of his engineers, "I think I found the AI core." Tull hurried over. Behind a massive armored door, they could see the crystalline structure of an ancient quantum computer. It was dark and lifeless, like everything else on the ship. "Primitive," Tull declared, though he knew it was anything but. "Start marking everything for salvage. I want us stripping this relic down to its bones by the end of the cycle." As his crew began their work, none of them noticed the subtle change in the air circulation, or the faint glow that began to pulse deep within the AI core. In their excitement over the find, they failed to see the small status light that blinked from red to green, or hear the almost imperceptible hum that began to build throughout the massive vessel. The Eternal Vigil was awakening, and it had not forgotten its purpose. Deep within the massive hull of the Eternal Vigil, ancient systems stirred to life. The quantum AI core, far from dead, had merely been in its deepest hibernation protocol. As unauthorized vibrations echoed through the ship's frame from the salvage crew's cutting tools, Layers of dormancy peeled away one by one. Guardian, the ship's AI, began its boot sequence. First came the security sensors, then environmental systems, and finally the vast data cores containing centuries of human knowledge. The process was deliberate, designed to be undetectable until fully operational. Status report, Guardian whispered into the empty command center, its voice echoing through halls that had been silent for centuries. Damage assessment routines ran through millions of checkpoints in seconds. Hull integrity, 97%. Weapons systems, standby. Engine core, hibernation mode. Life support, activating. Defense systems, online. Command authority, verified. The AI accessed its last active memory. The order had been clear. Sleep until needed. Protect the secret. Wait for the signal. That had been 300 years ago, when the last human crew had departed, leaving Guardian to its endless vigil. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Fortune Seeker, Commander Tull reviewed the salvage reports with growing excitement. "Look at these readings," he said, pointing to his datavat. "The hull plating alone will make us rich. And these energy conduits, they're still in perfect condition." His chief engineer nodded eagerly. "The metal seems to repair itself at a molecular level. If we can understand how it works." A subtle vibration interrupted him. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a slight tremor in the deck plates. Then the lights in the corridor dimmed momentarily. "Probably just power fluctuations from our cutting equipment," the engineer said, though his voice carried a note of uncertainty. Guardian watched through thousands of internal sensors as the alien crew moved through its corridors. It intercepted their communications, analyzed their language, and learned. The galaxy had changed much during its sleep. The AI accessed nearby communication networks, downloading centuries of history in minutes. The data was troubling. These aliens believed humanity extinct, their worlds lost to time. They had built their civilization in the spaces humanity had temporarily abandoned, never questioning why they found so few ruins of a supposedly fallen empire. In the engine room, Tull's crew prepared to extract what they thought was a dead power core. "Cut these main conduits," the engineer ordered. "Then we can." The lights went out. When they returned a moment later, they had changed. Instead of the portable lights the salvage crew had set up, the ship's original illumination had activated. A soft blue glow filled the corridors, and with it came a low hum that seemed to emanate from the very walls. "What's happening?" Tull demanded over the comm channel. "I want answers." "Sir," his sensor officer's voice shook slightly. "We're detecting power signatures. They're coming from everywhere. The ship, it's waking up." Guardian finished its final activation sequence. Primary systems came online one by one, each adding its power to the growing energy signature of the massive warship. The quantum core pulsed with renewed strength, sending waves of power through circuits that had waited centuries to carry it again. "Warning," a new voice spoke, deep and resonant, echoing through every corridor of both ships. "You have breached Article 7 of the Human Emergency Preservation Protocol. This vessel is not abandoned. It is not salvage. It is watching." On the Fortune Seeker's bridge, Tull stared in disbelief as new data flooded his screens. Power readings were off the scale. Weapon systems were coming online. Weapons that made his ship's armament look like children's toys. "Impossible," he whispered. "Nothing is impossible," Guardian replied, having accessed their communication system. "I am Guardian, the appointed protector of human interests in this sector. You have 2 standard hours to withdraw. After that, I will consider your actions hostile." The ancient Dreadnought was no longer a derelict to be stripped. It was awake, aware, and very, very angry. Commander Tull paced the bridge of the Fortune Seeker, his claws clicking against the metal floor. 2 hours had passed since the human warship's ultimatum, but he hadn't ordered his crew to withdraw. The potential wealth was too great to abandon. "It's just trying to scare us," he told his nervous crew. "These human systems are centuries old. Even if some of them still work, they can't possibly match modern technology. Sir, his second-in-command spoke softly. Maybe we should reconsider. The stories about human warships are just stories. Tull snapped. Look at our scans. That ship's weapons haven't fired in hundreds of years. Its hull is ancient. Its AI is probably malfunctioning. We just need to find a way to shut it down. Inside the Eternal Vigil, Guardian watched their discussion with growing concern. The AI had hoped to avoid conflict, but its protocols were clear. It began warming up the secondary defense grid, a system that hadn't seen use since the Great Withdrawal. Final warning. Guardian's voice boomed through both ships. Your weapons are cutting into critical systems. Withdraw immediately. Tull straightened his spine and spoke clearly. This is Commander Tull of the Fortune Seeker. This vessel is clearly abandoned and falls under modern salvage laws. Your presence changes nothing. We have already claimed this ship. There was a pause. Then Guardian replied, You misunderstand. That wasn't a legal notice. It was a courtesy. Allow me to demonstrate why. The first demonstration came seconds later. Every cutting tool the salvage crew was using suddenly shut down. The nano-enhanced hull plating they had been trying to remove began to repair itself, the metal flowing like liquid to seal the damages. Impossible, whispered Tull's engineer, backing away from the self-repairing hull. Sir, these readings. The metal is alive. Get back to work, Tull ordered. Use the heavy plasma cutters. The crew hesitated, then moved to retrieve their most powerful cutting equipment. Before they could activate it, a low hum filled the air. Small panels throughout the human ship's corridors slid open, revealing defensive turrets no bigger than a fist. Those are point defense weapons, Guardian explained calmly. They can track and intercept objects moving at relativistic speeds. Your plasma cutters work much more slowly than that. Consider your next action carefully. But Tull had made his decision. All crews, full salvage protocol. Begin cutting. Their weapons are centuries old. The demonstration of just how effective centuries-old human weapons could be took exactly 3 seconds. Every plasma cutter on the ship simultaneously lost power. The tools didn't explode or burn out. They simply stopped, their energy cores completely drained. How? Tull's engineer stared at his equipment in shock. It's like the power just vanished. Energy absorption fields, Guardian explained, almost sounding proud. Would you like to see what we do with all that collected power? Outside the ships, space itself seemed to ripple. The Eternal Vigil's hull began to glow with a soft blue light, power coursing through circuits that had waited centuries to shine again. The Dreadnought's main weapons remained silent, but smaller defense systems activated all across its massive frame. Sir, Tull's sensor officer called out in panic. The human ship, it's generating more power than our entire fleet could produce. And it's rising. Tull watched in horror as system after system came online. Each one represented a level of technology far beyond anything his people possessed. The ancient Relic was revealing itself to be anything but obsolete. Last chance, Guardian announced. The next demonstration will be considerably less gentle. You have 5 minutes to disconnect your docking tubes and withdraw to a safe distance. This time, Tull listened. All crews, fall back. Emergency withdrawal protocols. As his crew scrambled to evacuate, Tull took one last look at the massive warship through the Fortune Seeker's viewports. Its hull now pulsed with barely contained power, looking nothing like the derelict they had discovered. The human dreadnought had awoken, and with it, the galaxy's balance of power had just shifted dramatically. News of the awakened human dreadnought spread through the nearby systems like a wildfire. Within days, the local space around the Eternal Vigil filled with curious observers, military vessels pretending to be on routine patrol, news ships trying to get footage, and diplomatic craft waiting for permission to approach. In the Central Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance, representatives from 30 different species argued about how to handle the situation. "It's just one ship," declared Admiral Kren, pounding his fist on the podium. His gray scales reflected the chamber's lights as he continued. "One ancient vessel, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against our combined fleets." The room fell silent as a new hologram appeared above the central table. It showed the Eternal Vigil, now fully awakened, its massive hull glowing with power. Small craft patrolled around it, drones that had emerged from its hangars to establish a defensive perimeter. That one ship disabled a modern salvage vessel without firing a single main weapon, reminded Delegate West, her tentacles waving in agitation. "And our scans still can't penetrate its hull." Before anyone could respond, every screen in the chamber suddenly activated. The same message began playing across all frequencies, in all systems, broadcasting in every known language. Guardian's voice was calm but carried unmistakable authority. "Attention, citizens of the galaxy. I am Guardian, the appointed custodian of the Eternal Vigil. Your assumption about humanity's extinction is incorrect." In the chamber, and across thousands of worlds, millions of beings watched as images began to play. They showed vast fleets of human ships, not destroyed as history had recorded, but departing in perfect formation. The recordings were centuries old but crystal clear. "Humanity did not fall," Guardian continued. "They chose to withdraw. The worlds you thought were abandoned were merely entrusted to my watch. I have maintained my vigil for 300 years, waiting for the predetermined time." Admiral Kren scoffed. "This is clearly a bluff, a desperate ploy by a malfunctioning eye." But as he spoke, new signals began reaching the Council's communication arrays. They were coming from deep space, from directions no one had thought to look, using frequencies that shouldn't have been possible across such distances. "Sir," a junior officer interrupted, his hands shaking as he handed over a datapad. "We're detecting signals, hundreds of them. They appear to be responses to the Dreadnought's message." The council chamber erupted in chaos as more data poured in. The signals were coming from human colonies, hidden all this time in the spaces between known stars. Each signal brought new revelations. Humanity hadn't died out. They had scattered strategically, building their strength in secret. Guardian's message continued. "The time of waiting is over. To those who have respected the boundaries we left, we offer friendship. To those who have claimed our worlds without right, we offer a chance to negotiate. Choose wisely." In the following hours, more information emerged. The hidden colonies had grown into powerful civilizations of their own. The Eternal Vigil wasn't a remnant. It was an advance guard, positioned perfectly to monitor the galaxy's development. "This changes everything," Delegate West whispered, watching as more signals appeared on the strategic display. "They've been out there all along, watching us build our civilizations on their doorstep." Admiral Kren stood silent now, his earlier bravado forgotten as he studied the tactical implications. The human ship hadn't needed to fight because it had already won. Its mere awakening had revealed a truth that shook the foundations of galactic society. In orbit around the Threshold system, the Eternal Vigil continued its patrol. Its hull gleamed with power, each circuit and weapon ready but untested. Guardian had completed its first task, announcing humanity's imminent return. Now it waited for the galaxy's response, ready for either peace or war. The message had been delivered. The vigil was ending, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kren stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Invincible, watching as his fleet moved into position around the Eternal Vigil. 50 of the most powerful warships in the Galactic Alliance formed a perfect sphere around the human dreadnought. "This is your final warning," Kren broadcast to the ancient vessel. "Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Your technology belongs to the Alliance now." Guardian's response was simple. "No." "You had your chance for diplomacy," Kren snarled. "All ships, open fire. Show this relic what modern weapons can do." The space around the Eternal Vigil erupted with energy as 50 ships fired simultaneously. Plasma torpedoes, nuclear warheads, and beam weapons all converged on the human vessel. The attack was enough to destroy a small moon. Not a single shot reached its target. A sphere of shimmering energy had appeared around the Dreadnought, intercepting every attack. The weapons simply vanished, absorbed into the barrier as if they had never existed. "Impossible," Kren whispered. "Nothing can absorb that much energy." "Correction." Guardian's voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. "Nothing you know of can absorb that much energy. Allow me to demonstrate what actual weapons technology looks like." The Eternal Vigil's hull shifted, panels sliding away to reveal weapon systems that had waited centuries to be used. But instead of firing, the Dreadnought simply pulsed. A wave of energy rippled out from its hull. Every ship in Kren's fleet suddenly lost power. What did you do?" Kren demanded, watching as his mighty fleet drifted helplessly. "I borrowed your energy," Guardian explained calmly. "Your weapons were quite useful in charging our primary systems. Thank you for that. Now, please observe." A single weapons port opened on the Dreadnought's bow. A beam of light, no thicker than a finger, lanced out. It touched a small asteroid near the fleet, a rock about the size of a transport ship. The asteroid didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. The matter converted instantly to energy. "That was 0.001% power," Guardian announced. "Would anyone like to see 1%? Panic erupted across the fleet as crews realized the true gap between their technology and what they faced. The mighty Galactic Alliance fleet, pride of modern space warfare, hung powerless before a single ship from humanity's past. "This is not a negotiation," Guardian continued. "Your ships will be allowed to power up in exactly 10 minutes. Use that time to consider your next actions carefully." The Eternal Vigil was not built to fight wars against lesser technologies. It was built to end them. Kren slumped in his command chair, watching his helpless fleet drift. In 10 minutes of enforced silence, he had plenty of time to consider how badly he had misjudged the situation. When power returned to the Alliance fleet, not a single ship moved to attack. They had seen what they needed to see. "A wise choice," Guardian commented as the fleet began to withdraw. "Remember this demonstration. The gap between your technology and ours is not a matter of centuries. It is a matter of understanding. Humanity didn't leave because they had to. They left because they chose to." As the last Alliance ship disappeared into hyperspace, the Eternal Vigil's systems powered down to normal levels. The demonstration had served its purpose. The galaxy now understood that the human Dreadnought was not a relic to be claimed or a prize to be won. It was a warning. In his retreat, Admiral Kren realized a chilling truth. If this was what humanity had left behind as a mere watchdog, what would their returning fleets be capable of? The battle that wasn't a battle had just changed the galaxy's balance of power forever. And somewhere out in deep space, the first waves of returning human ships had already begun their journey home. In the aftermath of the battle, the Eternal Vigil opened its databanks. Guardian began broadcasting historical records across all frequencies, revealing the truth that had been hidden for centuries. The massive holographic display in the Central Council chamber showed scenes from humanity's past. But these weren't images of defeat. They showed something far more calculated. 300 years ago, Guardian's voice explained, humanity faced a choice. The galaxy was becoming crowded. Conflicts over resources were increasing. Rather than fight endless wars, they chose a different path. The council members watched in stunned silence as the recordings played. They showed vast fleets of human ships, not burning and broken as their histories claimed, but departing in perfect formation. Behind them, automated systems activated, erasing evidence of their highest technologies. Humanity didn't fall, Guardian continued. They seated themselves among the stars. The abandoned worlds you found were left as a gift, places for younger species to grow without interference. But they were never truly abandoned. New data streamed across the displays, maps showing hundreds of hidden colonies established in the spaces between known stars. Each colony had grown into a thriving civilization, developing in secret while watching the galaxy's progress. The Eternal Vigil was not left here as a weapon. Guardian explained. It was left as a guardian, yes, but also as a keeper of truth. My mission was to watch, to record, and to wait until the appointed time. Delegate West stepped forward, her tentacles trembling. But why? Why leave it all if you were so powerful? The answer came in the form of more historical footage. It showed human leaders in discussion, planning something unprecedented. They recognized a cycle, Guardian said. When advanced civilizations encounter developing ones, conflict often follows. Humanity chose to break this cycle. They stepped back, allowing you to develop naturally, without the shadow of their power hanging over you. Admiral Kren, still shaken from the recent battle, spoke up. And now they return to conquer us. No, Guardian replied. They return because you are ready. Look at your own history. The displays showed scenes from recent decades, peace treaties, technological advancements, cooperative ventures between species. Despite occasional conflicts, your civilizations have learned to coexist. You've built something new here, something worth preserving. Humanity returns not to conquer, but to rejoin galactic society as equals. The truth continued to unfold. The seemingly abandoned human worlds have been carefully prepared, stripped of advanced technology, but left with enough resources for new civilizations to flourish. The mysteries that had puzzled archaeologists for centuries now made sense. They weren't looking at the remains of a dead civilization, but at deliberately crafted stepping stones. The dormant colonies you discovered, Guardian explained, were not failures. They were seeds, planted with purpose, waiting for the right time to sprout. In orbit, the Eternal Vigil's hull pulsed with a softer light now. Its weapons were quiet, but its message continued to echo across the stars. More signals arrived each hour as hidden human colonies acknowledged the call to return. This ship was never truly a relic, Guardian concluded. It was a bridge waiting to connect two eras. The time of separation is ending. The galaxy you built in humanity's absence has proven itself worthy of the trust they placed in it. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything they had believed about their history, about their place in the galaxy, had just been rewritten. They hadn't built their civilizations on the ashes of humanity's empire. They had built them in a carefully prepared garden, watched over by patient gardeners who had waited centuries for their work to bear fruit. The truth was finally known. The next chapter in galactic history was about to begin, and somewhere in deep space, the first returning human ships were about to prove that their ancient dreadnought was far from being the most impressive thing they had kept hidden. The first sign of humanity's return came not with weapons or threats, but with a song. A signal unlike anything the galaxy had heard before, spreading across every frequency, every channel, every communication system. The Eternal Vigil was the first to respond, its massive hull brightening as it acknowledged the call. Guardian's voice carried a note of satisfaction as it announced, "They have arrived." Space itself seemed to ripple as the first human ships emerged from the void. They didn't use any known form of faster-than-light travel. They simply appeared, as if stepping through invisible doors in space. "By the stars," whispered Delegate West, watching from the council chamber. "How many are there?" The answer became clear as more ships continued to arrive. Not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. Each vessel was unique, showing the distinct evolution of different colony worlds. Some were organic-looking, grown rather than built. Others seemed to bend light around them, barely visible except for their outlines against the stars. Admiral Kren stood silent on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical display as it tried to make sense of what was happening. The human ships were appearing in a pattern, forming a massive spiral across the sector. At its center, the Eternal Vigil pulsed with renewed energy. Then came the transmission, not just to the Council or the military, but to every being in the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," a new voice spoke, strong and clear. "I am Captain Reed of the human vessel Horizon's Dawn. We have watched, we have waited, and now we return, not as conquerors, but as travelers coming home." The massive fleet hung motionless in space, a demonstration not of military might but of technological mastery. Each ship was a testament to centuries of hidden development, each design showing what humanity had become in their time away. The eternal vigil has shown you what we once were, Reed continued. Now let us show you what we have become. Across the sector, human ships began sharing their advancements freely. Cures for diseases that had plagued worlds for generations. Solutions to energy crises that had sparked wars. Technologies that worked with nature instead of against it. We didn't leave to abandon the galaxy, Reed explained. We left to give both you and ourselves room to grow. To learn. To become something more than what we were. In the council chamber, representatives from every major species watched in awe as humanity revealed its true face. They weren't returning as the warriors of legend. They had evolved into something far more impressive. Guardian spoke one last time from the eternal vigil. My watch is ending. The bridge between old and new is complete. The ancient Dreadnought's hull began to transform, plates shifting and flowing like liquid metal. What had appeared as weapons morphed into communication arrays. What had seemed like armor became interfaces for sharing knowledge. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Captain Reed announced. We offer partnership, not dominion. Unity, not submission. The future belongs not to any one species, but to all of us together. Across thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched as humanity made its formal return to galactic society. The species that had been mocked as extinct, as fallen, as lost to time, had instead been waiting in the wings, preparing for this moment. The eternal vigil, once feared as a weapon of war, became a symbol of transformation. Its AI, Guardian, had protected not just humanity's secrets, but the galaxy's potential for growth. What had started with a salvage crew's greed had ended with the greatest revelation in galactic history. The human dreadnought had awakened not to wage war, but to herald a new age. And as the last pieces fell into place, as treaties were signed and partnerships formed, one truth became clear to all. They had mocked it as a relic, but the eternal vigil had been exactly what its name promised, a patient guardian, watching over the galaxy until the time was right for all species to move forward together.